Before we get started, let us not bury the lead. Josh Sargent, tip of the cap to you. A cathartic moment for him. Hasn't been able to score. Stuck at the bottom of the ladder with Norwich. Having to miss some games for personal reasons. And then it all came together. He scores a goal of the highest caliber scorpion kick, Rene Higuita style. And then he scores a second one. The first one was a game winner, a game-winning goal that gets Norwich out of the relegation picture. They were on the road. The traveling supporters, if you didn't get goosebumps hearing USA directed at him and seeing the emotions just come right off of Josh Sargent. What a wonderful moment for him and a good chance to get back in the mix. Sometimes you just need to get it going and then it starts to pour. We know Josh Sargent's talented. And he is on the way back. Unfortunately, it happened where he probably can't get back on this USA roster. And that's what we're going to be talking about today on the Soccer OG. Check out the Soccer OG podcast. People are raving. Huge download numbers for my conversation with Hercules Gomez for my 50th show. It's up there. Check it out. We'll have Adam Bells of Scuffed Pod coming up this weekend to talk about World Cup qualifying, and just starting a podcast in general successfully. Please like and subscribe here on YouTube. We live in Thumbs Up City. Remember that. Not here. Thumbs Up City. So we're not talking about Josh Sargent. We are talking about the 28-man roster for the next 3 World Cup qualifiers that will position the U.S. to either make the World Cup or miss out. I think they do what they need to do here, and then hopefully qualify by that first game in the next window. It's possible. So we will look at this together, and we'll take away all the mumbo jumbo and get down to the brass tacks. Real quickly, here are the games that are going to be coming up. You probably know them by now, but we'll share it anyway. January the 27th, the United States take on El Salvador in Columbus. January 30th, they take on Canada in Hamilton, Ontario. February the 2nd, Honduras in Minnesota. So there it is. A chance to 2 home games. This is the 28-man roster that was selected. 28 men to certainly give Greg Berhalter a little more wiggle room because there are some other concerns. He said everyone's okay to travel to Canada, but you got to make sure with visas, etc., yada, yada. But that shouldn't be a concern. COVID is a concern. It left Gianluca Busio out of this squad. He would have been in there. And look, 3 games in a 7-day stretch, you want to be ready. Now, of these 28 players, many will not see the field. And that's what I want to really communicate with everyone here. I know every time when we release the rosters, the sanctimony and the arguments begin. And it's fine. But let's not sweat the small stuff, okay? Let's focus on the meat and potatoes. And it's about qualifying for the World Cup. It's not about getting so-and-so a taste of USA camp. This is much more serious. And although some of the experienced players have had their shot, maybe they haven't seized their opportunity, they have the advantage of having been here before. I would also add, there are guys on this team that we don't know the variables to. Maybe they're good in the locker room. Maybe they're good mentors. Maybe they're good at training. A coach is putting together a squad. It's not individuals. He doesn't want distractions. He wants guys he can trust. This is not just a U.S. men's national team situation. Every national team does it. Nobody throws in 18-year-old kids who haven't been capped, certainly not at this stage. It's a process. And I think Greg Berhalter has been vindicated because the guys that we have screamed for to get into the team, Tim Weah went through a process. Now he's starting and a featured player. Gianluca Busio went through a process. Now he is sometimes starting. Not in this window, though. And maybe Luca de la Torre, who was called in, begins that process here. He has made these players whole. And the young core will take over this squad. So let's look at the 28 men here. 4 goalkeepers, highlighted there by Zach Steffen. Gabriel Slolina gets it. Nice for the young player to get a sniff of this level. So also Matt Turner, Sean Johnson. Matt Turner might be close to signing with Arsenal, so he might join that team. I think since Stefan starts all 3 games, maybe Sean Johnson gets a game. Defenders, there are 9. Lots of right backs. Reggie Cannon, Serginho Dest, Brooks Lennon, Mark McKenzie, Chris Richards, Anthony Robinson, Miles Robinson, DeAndre Yedlin, Walker Zimmerman. Chris Richards is another guy who's given a shot, got some minutes, and now is starting games for the U.S. There's a process to it. Midfielders, lock it in. The trio that will start and are all playing very well. Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie, Yunus Musa, Kellen Acosta, likely the first guy off the bench. Luca De La Torre makes it. And then you have Sebastian Lletget and Christian Roldan, which I know a lot of eyes were rolling. I was surprised that Lletget made it. Forwards, Brendan Aronson, what a stacked group this is. Brendan Aronson, Paul Arriola, Jesus Ferreira, Jordan Morris, Ricardo Pepi, Christian Pulisic, Tim Weah, Gyasi Zardes. And I know Gyasi Zardes falls in that same boat, and does Paul Arriola. MLS players, bad. Paul Arriola almost made a huge move to Club America. Does that change things? I bet it does. Now, who was snubbed? I think the list is very small, so I don't want to argue about this. We shouldn't be arguing. Focus on the core group, because it's going to be 18 guys that play, maybe less than that play a significant role, and those are the 18 guys that we expect that have gotten the minutes. Real quickly with the snubs, people are screaming for Joe Scally. If Joe Scally is the big issue here, we're doing fine. Joe Scally is one for the future. By the way, one thing that I've told, 2 of the big things that is going to take soccer to another level in this country. The 2 things that are happening, which I think can feasibly move it into the bloodstream here in this country. World Cup success. I think we're going to be on that for these next 2 World Cups at the very least. And this phenomenon of watching Americans play all over, which we did with Josh Sargent. Look, Watford and Norwich is not a game we should be watching. We watch it because Josh Sargent's in it. At the same time, there was a Real Betis game. If we're a sophisticated soccer audience, which we are, we watch a lot, and we're opinionated, and we know about this sport. But you can't watch everything. But as American fans, we have to watch Watford Norwich. And I think more people are going to get into it. It's actually quite enjoyable. And I pumped my fist when Sargent scored. Joe Scally's another one. We watch Borussia Mönchengladbach games. I used to enjoy them. It's hard to watch now. Joe Scally's been okay for Mönchengladbach. The big achievements that he's broken into that lineup, not as much, but hasn't really distinguished himself to the point where you really are going to be bent out of shape to bring him here. If he's on there? Sure. Ahead of Brooks Lennon? Absolutely. But maybe something Brooks Lennon did that got into the eye of Greg Berhalter. By the way, Brooks Lennon is not going to see the field. And neither would have Joe Scally. So there's the big snub. The other one, John Brooks. Do you bring him in as extra cover? I like our 3 center backs. John Brooks kind of trending in the wrong way. His club's doing poorly. Greg Berhalter talked about Brooks on his address, and he says he could play a role in the future. Not the best fit for this window. Okay. He knows these players better than we do. You know who the biggest snub was? The biggest snub, and people, this is another guy that no one wants to see on this national team, but nobody has earned it more than Tim Ream. Fulham are on fire. They've scored like 17 goals in the last 3 games. Tim Ream has played every minute of every match for Fulham as they are on their way back to the Premier League. Tim Ream deserves to be on here. Tim Ream is the snub. And because he can play a couple positions in the back line, a little more surprising as well. That's the big snub in my books. Okay? So I'm going to put together my starting 11. I want everyone just to walk off the cliff a bit. This is not a fight we should be having. We should be really pumped about the team we have. The key players are in relative good health. Zach Stefan's going to start. There is the lineup there. Of course, you see it. Zach Stefan's going to start. Anthony Robinson's going to be the left back. Serginho Dest, the right back. Miles Robinson will be 1 center back. I have Walker Zimmerman in there. It could be Chris Richards, but as I foresee, all 3 of those guys will platoon. Platoon, a word that Greg Berhalter used a lot in his address. But I think those 3 guys will eat the minutes for all the center backs over these 3 games. Midfield, I mean, stamp it right there. Adams right behind McKennie and Musa. All three are playing regularly. All three are playing well. Weston McKennie is going through the roof. And then Pulisic is ready to go. And lots of minutes, not like the last window where he did score that goal against Mexico. He's going to be primed and ready. Ricardo Pepi playing for Augsburg. We're all going to wake up 6 a.m. Pacific time to watch an Augsburg game because we watch our American players. And I'm going to enjoy it. And then I put Tim Way in there. He was the hero of the last window. Brendan Aronson could be in there too. You know, the big concern here, and Greg Berhalter talked about, is a group of players that haven't played a lot. MLS players in particular. Greg Berhalter had that camp with some scrimmages. You can't really imitate a game situation. It's not ideal. But I will say this. The countries that are also participating in this window for the U.S. facing the same dilemma. El Salvador, many American-based players. Canada, many American-based, North American-based players. And as well, Honduras. So that's a bit of a push with that issue. They're prepared. They've never had games in January. So this is all kind of new. So Greg Berhalter, who's, I think, put every foot in the right place with a couple exceptions, should be able to push this team forward in this predicament. The other, I don't know if we want to get it. Look, Luca de la Torre was the one guy I think people really wanted to see, and he's in there. And he might play some minutes, and he might follow that trajectory of Richards and Busio. The core group of guys, that 11 that I showed you, and 5 or 6 more are going to put the U.S. through here. I said in my last video they should get 6 points. Situation in Canada may open an opportunity. No Alphonso Davies. Maybe the condition is not as bad as we thought. So maybe 7. But 6 points is a must. You got to win your 2 home games. Canada is still the best team in the region according to the standings. The next situation here to deal with is the weather. And it's going to be pretty cold. And I've looked at the weather now. Columbus, it'll be low 20s, mid 20s. Field is state of the art. So it has a heating situation. So to keep the players a little snug, I don't think that'll be a problem. Hamilton, Ontario, and the weather there was cataclysmic until recently. But on the 30th, it looks like, and remember, this is going to be a game in the daytime, 20 degrees. Artificial surface, which isn't great. And they have that lake there, and the wind's going to be whipping in. Could be worse. Could be a lot worse. It could have negative conditions. I think tonight it was like -3. Minnesota, it's going to be single digits. New stadium, heated track, but it's going to be uncomfortable. But as I said, Honduras and El Salvador, and Greg Berhalter touched on this, they're going to be in a bigger shock with this weather than this U.S. team, or at least it should be. The rule of thumb of cold weather, it tightens the game and less goal-scoring opportunities, which could affect the U.S., but I think these are really good parks that they're playing in. Now, I'd like to see them move this around. I don't want to look at a stadium in Cincinnati or something and see a lot of fans that look the same. That's not our country. We are a melting pot. We're a Benetton commercial. All creeds and colors and races together as an American community. I want to see that in the fans. I appreciate what's happening, but we've got to show America. We've got to get over this. But U.S. soccer, they'll throw it back in your face and say, well, look what happened when we scheduled Costa Rica and New York in the last cycle. You can't argue with that, right? Travel. And when we talk about this window, it's like the October window. You have home, away, home. Remember in October, the away game, Panama, it fell apart. Home, away, home. Greg Berhalter was asked about this, and we were wondering, will you see 7 changes like we saw last time out? Greg Berhalter said, maybe not. He feels that there's guys that can play 90 against El Salvador or can start against El Salvador and start in the Canadian game. And the reason being, you're in Columbus. Short flight, Toronto, YYZ Airport, rush! Bus ride into Hamilton for an hour. Come back, bus ride, YYZ Airport, Pearson. Short flight to Minnesota. You don't cross, I think you cross 1 time zone in those 3 visits. So there's none of this catching up with sleep and being thrown out of whack. Guys are going to be, which will allow them to play more. Greg Berhalter touched on, he knows that some of these guys haven't had a lot of minutes, but what he wants to do is maybe start them Be generous with the substitutions. If you looked at the last qualifiers, they've used either 4 or 5 subs. Expect that again in all 3 games. But I expect to see some similar starters as well along the way. Who is going to make the difference? To me, it's Weston McKennie. And Greg Berhalter was asked about him as well, and he pointed out some people in the media who raked him over the coals. I've talked about the Grant Wall podcast with Landon Donovan, where Landon Donovan said he should have been thrown out. Could not disagree with that more. I think we have to be smarter in the media to not have those reactions, because as Greg Berhalter said, it was a mistake, a momentary lapse. And now Weston McKennie, look how he's responded. So I will defend that guy anytime, and I have faith in him. So I think that's going to be a big spot. It's going to be a strange one with the weather, and we're hoping this Canada one, I just don't know what to expect. We got an idea when Canada played Mexico. Again, let's focus on that core group. It's going to get us over the tape. Don't worry about Joe Scally or John Brooks. It's a good squad. 28 players. You got Luca De La Torre. You got Chris Richards in there. Tim Weah made it in there under the wire. All right? It's a good squad. Let's support our team. Stay right here on the Soccer OG. We will be with you for a live stream preview of all the CONCACAF qualifiers ahead of the 27th. We'll have recaps after the games. Hope to be in Canada. I'm checking here my documentation. Fingers crossed. Subscribe, rate, review. Subscribe and like. We'll talk to you soon. Look, I put on a nice shirt for you guys.